Kathy's looking in New Jersey.
Is it Delta?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Warrenville Public Safety and Legislative Committee, Committee of the Whole, regular meeting. It's Monday night, evening, August 8th. Can I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Ashour,
Here.
Alderman Berry,
Here.
Alderman Goodman,
Here.
Alderman Hoffman,
Here.
Alderman Widener,
Here.
Alderman Wilson,
Here.
Alderman Bevere, and Alderman Davalos are excused this evening,
And City Administrator Coakley is
and City
not in this
Administrator
evening.
Coakley as well.
Right. If you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Time for citizens' comments. We have Mr. Bob Siebert. Would you care to make your comment now or at the time of the, on the agenda? Okay, now it is.
Bob Siebert, Albright Court. I was requested by the Attorney General's office in Springfield to submit this document to the City of Warrenville. I'll just read some of the paragraphs, not the whole document. States, on June 20th, 2016, the Warrenville City Council met in executive session to discuss establishing a land trust, citing Open Meetings Act Exemption 5LC 122C5. The purchase or lease of real property for the use of public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. The council discussed the creation of a land trust during the closed meeting. The following city council meeting, they passed the ordinance for the land trust. Illinois courts have first affirmed the narrow scope of OMA in 1974 in Illinois News Broadcasters Association versus the City of Springfield. The court restated the plain language of OMA. The exception allowing closed meetings are few and must be narrowly construed because they degrade the general policy of open meetings. Illinois courts have repeatedly upheld the method of interpretation. The court's reasoning does not apply to Warrenville's discussion of a land trust in closed session. Discussing the creation of a land trust outside the terms of a lease or purchase agreement is not within the narrow reading of Exemption 2C5 as defined in Galena Gazette. Warrenville has not claimed, nor does the public record indicate, that the land trust agreement was a term of a purchase agreement or lease for the real property. Therefore, the matter was improperly discussed in closed session. Further, according to the binding Public Access Bureau opinion issued by the Office of the Attorney General, the plain language of section limits its applicability to discussions concerning the purchase or lease of real property. When a statute is clear and unambiguous, it must be given effect as written. Section 2C5 is written to exclude any matter outside of the express purpose of purchase or lease of real property. The Warrenville City Council should have discussed the creation of the land trust in open session because it does not fit under exceptions 2C5. The purchase or lease of real property. The City Council violated the Open Meetings Act by discussing the resolution to create a land trust in closed session. And I've been asked to submit this to the city. I'll give it to the clerk.
Two things, nice positive community things this week. National Night Out last Tuesday night, a huge success. We were very lucky with the weather. Chief, do we have a number of participants yet?
We have a preliminary estimation, Mayor. We're looking at somewhere between 12 and 1,300 people, so we're going to get an exact count this week, and we'll have that up, and we'll give
Okay,
everybody the
by all
final
estimations, it was another success, though.
Yes, sir.
Great evening, lots of families out there, weather was good, lots of fun, lots of free food. So thank you, and thank the officers who put that together for us, please. And then summer days, Friday and Saturday night, another successful operation, another town celebration. The weather was perfect again. It was just a delightful time, so thank all of the people involved in that, from the Park District and from our Chamber of Commerce and from the city, everyone who cooperated to make that another hometown success. So a couple of nice things that happened in town this last week.
Thank you. Alderman? Alderman Goodman?
Yeah, I wanted to put in my 2 cents on summer days too. I was on the summer days committee, and I really wanted to thank the other members of the committee, including Deputy Clerk Morgan, who serves with me on the committee, as well as the people from the Park District, Diane, Dave, Barb, Carrie, Tim, Greg, Michelle, and Wayne from the Chamber, and a lot of other people, many more, too long to list here, and all the volunteers that came out and made it all happen and worked on the booths and sold the beer tickets and helped the performers and got all the people parked, and just so much work that goes into that, and none of those people get paid. So it's really a great event, and it went over really well. We had fantastic weather. The music was wonderful. The Battle of the Bands was fun. The Warrenville's Got Talent was very cute. We had a really nice time. So thank you to all the people that made that happen.
Thank you. I would like to make one comment about Saturday in the afternoon, starting at 12, was the Warrenville Historical Society summer tea, and it was very successful. There were quite a few people there, and quite a few ladies. One of these days we'll have to get some of these men involved in coming to a tea. I don't know maybe what we'll have to serve, but maybe something other than tea. But it was very exciting. There was a woman there that portrayed a woman that was a Union spy who lived in Richmond, Virginia. Her last name was Van Leeuwen, and how she actually got secrets out from the Richmond from the Richmond City area into the hands of the Union, and how after the war she was just considered a pariah. They wanted nothing to do with her, and she lived a life all alone and had no money and was broke, and it was very sad actually. But she did a wonderful thing. It was very good presentation, and as always, the Historical Society, the Guild, puts on the summer tea, and it was a very fun event, something that I wish more young people would get involved with, but it was kind of hard with summer days and the same day and everything, but there were still quite a few people there, and we had a wonderful time, so thank you. Alderman Goodman?
Yeah, sorry, one more thing. Also, on Wednesday, there's going to be another concert on the Commons. This week, it's a classical band. I think it's called Classical Blast. And they do some modern music, but with classical instruments. It's very interesting. So that's going to be Wednesday night on the Bob Walters Commons, the park between the City Hall and the library at 7 o'clock. Free music. Everybody come on out and enjoy it.
Clerk Larson?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have my Warrenville in Bloom hat on today, just flowers. We had a table at National Night Out and want to thank Officer Teresa McBride for organizing that event. She did an awesome job, and we were able to hand out some literature on our flower program, that beautification that we do here in Warrenville. So it was a great crowd, great night, a little bit humid, but that's all right. It didn't rain, so everybody had a good time. That's what we always pray for. And then summer days, we want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for allowing us to share the 50/50 raffle that they put on, and we got $1,025. And then young lady who didn't answer her phone when we called her gave her the news over the phone. So I hope she's contacted the chamber. And I want to thank the sellers. We had some great people selling tickets for us, Sheila Rutledge and our Warrenville and Bloom members. So it was a great event, a lot of people, and we're thankful for that opportunity to raise a couple of extra dollars. Buy more flowers. Thank you.
I have one more thing I'd like to say. This Thursday evening is the workshop for the Tourism and Arts Commission, which starts at 7 o'clock. And if you are interested in receiving a grant from the city to put on an event that you do, please come to the workshop. We're giving you the information on how to apply, the things that you should do, the things that you shouldn't do. So if you are interested in doing that, please come to the workshop at 7 o'clock. That's this Thursday evening, and it'll be right here in this room. Thank you. Okay, now on to the business of the meeting. Number 1, consideration to dispose of surplus city property utilizing Obanoff Auction Services for a seized vehicle and city fleet vehicles. Chief Toronto.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a total of 3 vehicles. We have prepared an exhibit with an inventory of those vehicles. 2 of them are city surplus vehicles, which are no longer able to be utilized by the city. And the other one is a Article 36 seized vehicle that was awarded to the city by the DuPage County Courts. Staff is recommending that we auction these vehicles using Obanoff Auction Services as we have in the past. The city will receive 94% of the auctioned property value, and Obanoff gets a 6% as a service fee. We have included a sample proposed ordinance for the use of this, which would allow this auction to take place. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if there is any.
Questions or comments? Alderman Widener?
I know we've used this group before to disperse some of our surplus items, and it's been at a great savings to the city. If we were to undertake an auction ourselves and try to divest ourselves of this equipment, it would be much more expensive than the 6% service fee that they're asking for. So with that, I'd make a motion recommending the City Council approve an ordinance authorizing the disposal of city-owned property through an auction conducted by Obanoff Auction Services Incorporated.
Second.
A motion by Alderman Widener and a second by Alderman Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 2, informational update on Phase 2 of the compensation philosophy. This would be Assistant City Administrator Christina White.
Thank you. Back in June of 2015, the City Council adopted its compensation philosophy. As part of that item, we had brought forward a job factor analysis proposal through SICITch to review the internal positions with the city, and they have completed that portion of this project, and tonight we have here Craig Anderson from SICITch, and with that I'm going to introduce him to give a brief overview to the City Council of what went into that project and where we are with that.
Thank you. That's fine over here.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to kind of update you on the project. I know you're obviously aware of what's been going on, what's been happening for the past several months. Better? Better, okay. And First of all, I thank all the staff who's helped us with this. Everybody was extremely cooperative, very helpful. We got great assistance. Scheduling interviews, we interviewed 53 people, so there was a lot of logistics involved just in doing that. But everybody was very helpful, and it was a pleasure to work with everyone, John, Christina, Jennifer, and certainly all the staff. So that was really good. We were retained to conduct this job factor content analysis and classification study for all the positions within City of Warrenville organization. And as you're aware, the reasons for the study, position duties and responsibilities change over time. Sometimes pay compression might exist between an employer and the employee, I should say, and his or her supervisor. And then there's, usually every several years, good reason maybe to take a look at the internal equity of positions in the classification plan, just to make sure everything still is sound and where you think it ought to be. So the job factor or job content analysis is an assessment of the position, not the person in the position. So certainly for like police officers, there's a lot of people in those positions, but we're looking at the position. We might interview most of the police officers, but we're looking at the position. And the analysis, and I know there's some stuff in your packet, is partly based on 8 factors that we use from this instrument, job evaluation instrument called the Modified Oliver System. It's been around for a little while, but it's good. It works well. We certainly used it with other municipalities very successfully. And that focuses on, for each position, preparation and training that's necessary for the position, experience required, decision-making, independent judgments. It's exercised by that position, people in that position, any responsibility for policy development and execution, any degree of planning and analysis is done as part of that position on a regular basis. The contact with others, the amount of that, the degree of that contact, the importance of that contact, whether or not that position supervises other folks, and then working conditions. Whether, and as you know, that can range from, the typical office environment to obviously, more extreme situations outside in cold weather, with the traffic stop, anything of that nature. The information we obtained helps to identify the similarities and differences between the positions within each department, as well as the positions within the organization as a whole. Then that information provides, in our opinion, a foundation for the development of a classification plan that has validity and internal consistency, which is good. You need to have those things. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not unusual to undertake this type of analysis every several years. Again, it depends on the organization, but it's something that we would suggest you'd want to take a look at from time to time. That could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, whatever seems to be most important for your community, and depending again how the plan's working. The steps along the way. We held orientation meetings with groups of employees. I think we had about 4 of those. We asked each employee to complete a job analysis questionnaire, which I believe you received copies of. And then we had each supervisor, department head, and assistant city administrator review each completed questionnaire. And then city staff took those questionnaires and existing job descriptions and looked at all those, conducted our on-site interviews and looked at the results of those interviews, and then we prepared a preliminary draft job factor analysis and content ratings, which basically assigns scores to positions, and they can be ranked within the organization, within the department. And then we have had at least one meeting, and maybe 2, or at least one, to review the preliminary study results with the assistant city administrator and the city administrator. And that's where we're at the moment. Be glad to try and answer any questions, or if there's anything I missed.
Alderman Goodman?
Yes, I thought the whole job factor ranking was very interesting. All the different point values that were assigned to everything, and how in some categories you could go up as high as 130, but others only 60, and the different weighting factors. That was very interesting. But one thing I couldn't quite figure out from the explanation provided was what the total meant. Is there a significance to the total of the points once you compare? I mean, it says here that positions can be allocated to a class of jobs that are sufficiently comparable with respect to the factors cited above to be compensated at the same general level of pay. So I'm picturing that as meaning if the numbers in each of the 8 different categories are same from one job to another, that the pay should be about the same. But what about the totals?
The total, I can't say there's anything particularly significant about that, other than there's a maximum total that you could arrive at. For instance, if you had a position that got the maximum score for each factor, that would be the maximum total. But what that total figure is used for is for comparison purposes, as all the figures are. So it's not unusual, I don't know in the examples we had one, but to have, let's say, you might have people who have the most responsibility in the organization, but maybe adverse working conditions aren't so bad, but then they have another factor that gives them more points. Bottom line is, you can have a total that could be, let's say, 700 and something, and that might be the highest one in the organization. And then you use that, and then others are going to fall under that. So the total number itself, I can't say is significant, other than it shows that, hey, this is the highest ranked position in the organization in terms of the job factor analysis. And then that would be compared to other positions within the organization and their total scores. And going from there, you can develop groupings based on those total amounts. And what we do, and that's kind of another part going forward perhaps, is this banding, so that you could say, okay, even though these 4 positions are in different departments, they fall within, let's say, 30 points of each other, perhaps they should be in the same band when it comes to consideration of pay. And so it's probably a long-winded answer, but that total itself is just a number, an important number, but it's significant in terms of, if you rank them in order, and we will do that for the city, but from highest to lowest, we can do it for each department for the whole organization as well. So you get a picture. As you might expect, a department head position is probably going to rank higher than, let's say, an administrative assistant position, just based on what they do and their responsibilities.
Sure. I mean, I think within a particular department, that makes sense. You'd have, further notches up on several different things. But what about someone that's high in one category and low in a different category, and a different position where that's reversed? But then I was trying to figure out, how the different categories were weighted, because it seems like some of them, like the 130-point scale, obviously, could affect the total a lot more than other categories, which wouldn't affect the total as much.
Right, and I think you just said it very well. There is the weighting factor. When we go through and look at each job factor and what points ought to be given based on the degree to which that job factor is important for that position. So, as maybe alluded to a little bit earlier, take a police officer. They're probably going to rank pretty high for adverse working conditions. A secretary is probably not going to have that happen. So it's kind of a balancing act as you go through from, there's 8 factors, and ultimately the total's important because when all is said and done, based on weighting those factors and scoring and weighting the factors, how you determine that, this position overall has more responsibility or more hazardous conditions that are involved, and ranks higher, even though there might be, in that job factor analysis, in those factors, there might be things that they rank lower. So the total person who has the highest score certainly could rank lower on a particular factor than somebody who has a lower score. And that total is significant because that's where you rank in the organization and with respect to your colleagues in the organization. But it's a little bit of a balancing thing in what's most important for that job, what's the most important for that organization, and you need to come up with some way to evaluate that, and that's that total score at the end.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was informational only, and we'll go on to number 3, consideration of a proposal for Phase 3 of the compensation philosophy and to designate Alderman Bevere and Barry to serve on the employee work group. Assistant Administrator White.
Thank you. In your packets is the proposal for this next phase of the project. This, along with the study of the internal comparability, which we just talked about as the informational item, were all items that were discussed by the task group during the compensation philosophy development period. The portion of this part of the project is really to drill down our comparables that we look at when we're doing our salary survey. Currently, the city utilizes 28 comparable communities. The task group, along with the help of Sikich in the initial phases of this project, identified that a 10 to 15 comparables was a more manageable number, as well as having some different selection criteria for how we determine those comparables. Currently, the city is looking at it from a location standpoint, proximity to the city of Warrenville. That's how we've developed our list of 28. The work group, along with Sikich, recommended looking at some other factors, including population size, number of full-time employees. So the proposal before you is to move on to that phase of this project and look at a new list of comparable communities for our survey, and to reestablish the work group to help us finalize those criteria to make those selections. With that, I have Julie Strahl here, who's going to be helping us from Sikich with that next phase of the project, if there's any questions. Julie, want to give a brief overview? Thank you.
That was a very nice overview, Christina. Yes, and thank you for the opportunity to continue to work with all of you. It's been a pleasure getting to meet and know all of the staff and elected officials through this great process. And as Christina put so eloquently, the next step is to look at that external competitiveness piece. So when you think of compensation and philosophies, you're looking at one, the internal equity, and now we turn our focus to the external competitiveness piece. And as part of that process, it's important to reconvene the study group and to go through that process and explain the methodology for developing that piece and determining those organizations and those communities that are most closely match the city of Warrenville. And there's a great methodology in order to do that, and that's looking at various factors. Granted, proximity to the city is one, but there are many others too that we'll talk about as the study group. Everything ranging from EAV to budget numbers, your revenues, your expenditures, number of full-time equivalent employees. So there are a lot of factors that come into play, and they're weighted, very similar to the weighting we just discussed for the internal equity piece. And we apply the methodology and a weighting factor in scoring. And what's so unique and fun about this is once you apply all of that scoring, it's interesting to see where organizations fall into line along with the city. And we typically find a very nice natural break line, and that ends up being in the range of 10 to 12 organizations which match very closely to your city. And granted, whenever you do this type of project work, of course, you're going to have communities within a certain mile radius, and you're going to want to decide what that is. And that will be some of the good project work that we'd work on with the committee when it reconvenes. But then also, no matter what communities come out of this methodology and this work, you're also going to want to have your neighboring communities as part of the comparables, because at the end of the day, you compete with them for your talent and keeping your hiring and retaining that talent as well. So that would be a piece of this project work, and working with the committee to apply those measures, and then come back to you with the recommendations and the findings, and give you an opportunity to ask questions and then move forward on the next phase.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, Alderman Goodman.
Well, we've certainly worked well with Sikich in the past. We've had a good experience and a good working relationship with the company. So I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council accept Sikich's proposal dated August 1, 2016, to develop a list of comparable communities in an amount not to exceed $9,310 and designate Alderman Berrien Bevere to continue working with the employee work group on this project.
Second.
A motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Ashour. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Miscellaneous. I think we have one commendation here. This was from Lake in the Hills for the assistance of Detective Dorothy Wehoffen, who's assisted them. So they're thanking us for that and for her participation. We have no closed session, and all we need is a motion. Alderman Goodman?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, nobody. Good. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.